Hello and welcome in to another episode of the Fantasy Football Forecast. I'm your host, Trevor Scott, coming at you with the Week 3 winners and losers. There was a lot of football, a lot of very, very good performances, a lot of very, very bad performances as well. So let's get into some of these players here. So first off, we're going to start with the running back position because there was a lot of winners there this week, right? We had kicking it off, Saquon Barkley, 31 points in half PPR. He was excellent this week. Can't really ask for much more here, right? Scored twice, had a 2-point conversion, scored on a long touchdown. Really, he kind of willed the Eagles to the win in this game, right? They did not get much going until very late in the game. And sure enough, here comes Saquon Barkley over like 145 yards and slightly involved in the passing game, but very heavily involved in the running game. Obviously, all of the work. He is awesome. Continue to start him. I did list him first here because I think personally, for the rest of the season, I think he's running back one. I think we've seen at this point that he has scoring upside. He can score multiple touchdowns in any game. And I would personally rather have him than Breece Hall, who kind of is sharing with Braylon Allen at this point, and Bijan Robinson, who kind of has the Tyler Algier thing as well, but also not on as good of an offense necessarily. So I really like Saquon Barkley this year. I think for rest of season, he is running back one. And if we were redrafting now, he'd be a top 5 pick. Going down to the second player here, Kyren Williams had an awesome game, 30 points, 3 touchdowns, led the Rams to the win over the 49ers. Just an overall awesome game, kind of re-announced himself. I think there was some doubters on Kyren Williams, some question marks on if he was going to be able to kind of recapture his success from last year. And this was his coming out party here. He scored through the air. He scored twice on the ground. He had over 100 total yards. I really like Kyren moving forward, and I think this is excellent to see. Blake Corum did not see the field at all, did not have a touch. And so this is clearly Kyren's backfield. This is clearly all his job. And I expect to rank him in the top 8 pretty much no matter the matchup moving forward. Another guy that was great to see him get going was Derrick Henry. Obviously, he's been productive. He's scored in both games, but it kind of left a little bit to be desired. Not much work in the passing game, really. And in this game, it was all Henry. 25 carries, 151 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Caught a 23-yard pass, too. So he had 174 total yards. Just an awesome day, 29 points in half PPR scoring, and just a very, very strong breakout game. This is what we wanted to see. This is what we've been expecting from him as a Baltimore Raven. I know he had kind of been pushed down slightly in rankings coming into the week. I know I had him at like 13, I think, and that was a mistake, obviously, even against Dallas. So in games that they're winning and games that they can control the ball on the ground, I think they're going to, and Derrick Henry moving forward is going to be back in that top 10 conversation. Fourth guy here, fourth running back that had a really big game was Aaron Jones. He had an injury designation, right? A hip injury throughout the week, but he got in full practice on Friday and he dominated in this game. He had 19 carries, over 100 rushing yards. He had 5 receptions. He had a receiving touchdown. He got tackled on the 1 on a 39-yard carry, so almost scored a rushing touchdown there. And then he got a goal line carry on the 1. It turned into a negative 3-yard run, unfortunately, but they did try and get him in the end zone on that play as well. That turned into a Mund touchdown. So overall, very encouraging day from Aaron Jones. Only 7 carries for Ty Chandler, so not quite that 60-40 split we had seen to this point. I do think that they're going to shift back towards that 60-40, right? I don't think this is just going to be dominantly Aaron Jones's backfield. I think they're trying to keep him healthy throughout the year. They are a very good team here, right? They're 3-0. Their defense looks excellent, and on the ground, they're able to control the ball. Sam Darnold looks great. So overall, I do think they want to try and control the ball on the ground, and Ty Chandler is going to continue to be a part of that. But Aaron Jones, I think, top 15 running back for the rest of the season, I think is a very reasonable expectation. The last guy on here, just wanted to mention him in case anybody's forgetting, but David Montgomery is a set it and forget it starter. He had 26 touches in this game, 110 yards and a touchdown. He scored in like 7 of his last 8 games, I think. So moving forward, make sure he's in your lineup, at least as a flex, but he's a very good RB2 at this point, somebody that I wish I had in more spots. Going over to the other positions here, we have a quarterback and then some pass catchers. Andy Dalton, man, he looked awesome. We talked about him as QB20 as kind of a starter in all leagues, back end starter. We should have had him higher, obviously, in this game, but over 300 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. He looked excellent. They won the game. They put up 36 points. This is the Canales offense that we were hoping to see. This is the step forward we were hoping Bryce Young was going to make. And if you got Andy Dalton in your Superflex leagues, you are extremely, extremely happy right now. I don't think they're going to go away from him anytime soon. And so make sure you get him into your lineups over a lot of these other quarterbacks, right? Over Deshaun Watson, over Matthew Stafford, over Will Levis, even, we'll kind of get into Baker Mayfield and Derek Carr. You might even be able to start him over those guys. So Andy Dalton establishing himself here as a viable fantasy starter, especially in Superflex. And tying it straight in, right, had Diontae Johnson right below him here. 8 catches, 122 yards, and a touchdown on 14 targets. He was the focal point. This is what we were hoping and expecting to see from him, this level of workload in the passing game. I do know that Adam Thielen got banged up in this game and didn't return in the second half, so they leaned on Diontae Johnson even more than they necessarily would have. But it's just awesome to see him have a breakout game with a competent quarterback, and I expect this to move forward. If you do have Diontae Johnson, it's definitely a viable flex play, definitely a top 25 receiver from here on out. If you didn't buy low on him, we did say that this was kind of the time to buy low. Now that they're switching to Andy Dalton, you have to get him on your team. So I think that buy low window has shut on Diontae Johnson now. Next guy whose buy low window has also been slammed shut in this game was Amari Cooper. He had an awesome game, 86 yards and 2 touchdowns, caught a touchdown on the very first play from scrimmage. It was awesome to see from Cooper. I'm very, very encouraged about this, right? 12 targets. Obviously, we knew the target share was there, and the fact that he turned it into production this week, I think was very, very positive to see. And he did it against the Giants, which we were saying he should be able to kind of torch the Giants, but they didn't even end up winning the game. So it's very good to see Cooper get going. I really hope that this is a sign of things to come and somebody that you're going to be able to kind of trust, again, similar to Diontae Johnson, as a top 25 wide receiver moving forward. The third wide receiver on here, right, we thought he was going to have a solid game, right? We recommended him as a start because everybody else was out, right? Kittle's out, Debo's out, McCaffrey's out. He's pretty much the only game in town. Other than Ayuk, who's still getting up to speed. But, 11 catches for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. That is the biggest game we've seen from anybody this year. 46 fantasy points in full PPR. It's unbelievable to see a player like this just explode in that way when he is just so buried on this depth chart that he doesn't even get a chance to play very often, doesn't even get a chance to start. And they have this level of talent just waiting to be used when you have injuries. It was a crazy game. He did it against the Rams, and the Rams are awful against the pass. So, they're literally 32nd against the pass even coming in, and he torched them. So they're going to continue to be 32nd. So, temper expectations. He's not going to do this, but as long as all of the other weapons for the 49ers are out, he is 100% a starter. He is going to be a top 20 wide receiver for me next week. If Debo and Kittle are still out, obviously Christian McCaffrey's on injured reserve. If those two guys are out, he will be a top 20 wide receiver for me. There's just no way you can keep him out of your lineups at this point. If he somehow did not get added on your waiver wire, this is going to be the number one waiver wire priority here. So keep that in mind moving forward. He was awesome. He was excellent. Somebody I cut off that I did want to mention before I go to the switch positions, wide receiver, honorable mention, I guess, because I ran out of room on the graphic, so I didn't want to scrunch it or put it on there. But Odunze, right, rookie receiver for the Bears, he had a breakout game in a major way. 6 catches, 116 yards and a touchdown. He caught a 47-yard pass down the field. He caught a 1-yard touchdown, so he did it in the short area. He did it down the field. Caleb Williams looked much better, 360 yards, kind of his breakout game. He turned the ball over 3 times, so he didn't make the winners, even though it did feel like he kind of got it going through the air. But just wanted to call out Odunze, even though he's not up here. And then the tight end, obviously, that looked awesome was Jake Ferguson. If he got cut in your league and you ended up picking him up, that is an excellent, excellent thing for you because he got 11 targets here, 6 catches, over 90 receiving yards. Obviously, they were playing from behind with Baltimore, right? That was a very difficult part of their game because they were down a lot in the fourth quarter, right? They were down 28-6 and they were just throw. So Ferguson got loaded up with targets here in a way that he might not otherwise, but 11 targets, regardless of the situation, is very, very valuable. Excellent to see him get involved in that way in his first full healthy game this year, right? He got knocked out of week 1, didn't play in week 2. This was his first game he played start to finish to get 11 targets. You're feeling very good if you drafted Jake Ferguson. Week 3 losers, not quite as many names on this list, but it is quite a few impactful names. And for the SuperFlex leagues, right, we're going to talk about all these quarterbacks because I had all of these guys ranked as top 10 options and they all flopped. So let's start with Anthony Richardson. He just looks overwhelmed. I don't know what's going on with him through the air. Can't get Pittman going. Hasn't really done anything there. Josh Downs was back. He kind of led the way from a target perspective, but again, not really much through the air there. And, you know, with Jonathan Taylor kind of taking over all of the rushing, I mean, he had over 100 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns this week. Anthony Richardson hasn't really had a ton to do on the ground either over the last 2 weeks. So he had a massive week 1 where he kind of went off, right? Had a couple deep throws to Pierce. Pittman was okay, but then Jonathan Taylor obviously didn't take all of the rushing work, and he got a lot of rushing with a rushing touchdown. But this is not looking good. I am very, very concerned here. And this is why these rushing quarterbacks have the ability to finish as QB1. But if they aren't running as much as they should be, and they can't get it going at all in the passing game, they can't stay on the field, it's just the floor can bottom out here. So hopefully he turns it around through the air, because otherwise this offense is going to continue to sputter in a way that isn't going to be helpful for his fantasy value. CJ Stroud against Minnesota. I guess we just have to tip our cap to Minnesota and acknowledge that they have a very good defense. I mean, they shut down Brock Purdy last week and they crushed Carolina in week 1. And then they go out and they crush Houston and hold CJ Stroud completely in check. 9 points, not going to get it done. So I think this maybe had more to do with the matchup than anything else. Stephon Diggs had a great day, 10 catches, over 90 yards. Nico Collins didn't do too much. And then the game got out of hand. I mean, they were just, Minnesota's winning by so much that Davis Mills kind of came in and played in mop-up duty to kind of finish out the game. So Stroud maybe could have done a little bit more during those drives, but really only the touchdown pass to Cam Akers. And that was it in terms of scoring on the offense. So very, very poor showing from Stroud. I do expect him to turn it around. I don't think you have anything to worry about here, but that's definitely a major disappointment. And then the third quarterback here, Baker Mayfield. I think we maybe got out over our skis a little bit on Baker, right? I mean, he was QB1 through 2 weeks, so it's hard to, say that we did, but then this week he just was not good. I mean, he didn't have Evans because Surtain was locking him up. Godwin scored, but other than that, they just couldn't get anything going. Bucky Irving looked good on the ground, but Rashad White did not again for the 3rd straight week. So, I don't know. I hope Baker can kind of get this going again. Hopefully maybe Jalen McMillan can get a little bit more involved. K. Dalton can maybe get a little bit more involved, who was pretty involved today overall with Evans kind of getting stifled by Surtain. But I really hope to see Baker kind of turn around here and get this Bucs offense back on track in week 4. Though running back here, there was so many good running back performances this week. There really wasn't that many letdown performances. This one was a major letdown. I mean, for the most part, he had been awesome through the first 2 weeks. He had seen 20 plus touches both games. And then the Jets just completely kept the ball away from the Patriots. They couldn't sustain anything on offense. Stevenson only gets 6 carries and 0 catches, no targets. Like, I did not see that coming at all. I did have him ranked lower than consensus, right? He was up at like 13 or 12, and I had him at 16, but still, that was not a good enough. That was not a low enough ranking. Like, he should have been buried this week going against the Jets defense, who just completely shut down the Patriots. So the offensive line doesn't look good, but that hasn't mattered through the first 2 weeks. So I do think Rhamondre Stevenson right back is top 20 running back. Just somebody that I'm definitely more worried about than I was before the week. And I didn't think that I would rather have Aaron Jones than him, but after this week, I feel like I'd rather have Aaron Jones. I'd rather have the running back that's on the better offense than somebody who can have bigger spike weeks, but that is going to be held back in games where they just can't get the offense running against good defenses. Moving on to the receivers or the pass catchers here. Calvin Ridley, 1 catch today on 3 targets. Incredibly disappointing, especially in a game where Will Levis threw it a ton, had 260 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was getting the ball to Hopkins, who had 7 for 85 and a touchdown. So to see Ridley just completely out of the game plan here was very disappointing, and he just didn't get it going at all. I do think last week, right, he had 22 points, but 40-yard rushing touchdown, 40-yard receiving touchdown on a ball that almost got picked off. I don't want to discredit the production, but those are both kind of fluke plays, right? That isn't something that you can count on with any sort of consistency. And we saw that play out this week. So unfortunately, Calvin Ridley, very poor game this week. Rashid Shaheed, obviously he was kind of the darling of the first 2 weeks, right? Caught long touchdowns in both games, but he had 0 receptions in this game. The Saints didn't do much against the Eagles, just in general. It was a much lower scoring game than they were used to, only scored 12 points in the whole game. But unfortunately, this is a situation where Shaheed is only seeing 4 or 5 targets a game. So there are very, very low lows that are coming when you only see 5 targets. I will say 2 of those targets were end zone targets that hit his hands, right? There was a guy on him and, kind of pass defended. So they weren't drops, right? But if he comes down with either of those, then all of a sudden this doesn't look nearly as bad. But unfortunately, 0 catches here. And I'm sure he was started in a lot of spots, right? The 62% start percentage. So this is a very, very disappointing game for a lot of fantasy owners. Going right back to the disappointment here with Jameson Williams. Only 1 reception here for Jameson Williams, right? And obviously he had been great through 2 weeks. He had a ton of targets. He was very productive. But again, it's one of those things where he's not fully established into the offense yet. And unfortunately, they kind of just were able to take him away. So we'll see how he adjusts to that. We'll see kind of where he ends up settling in the rankings moving forward. And we'll see if he's able to kind of get deep for more touchdowns. But also Sam Laporta left this game. He barely played in the second half, and Jameson Williams wasn't able to do anything. Also lower passing production in this game, just in general too, because they were running it so effectively with David Montgomery and with Gibbs. So in those games where maybe the game script is flipped in their favor, Jameson Williams just won't be as involved in the game plan. So very disappointing game here too. Only 1 reception. And Mark Andrews, another bagel here for Andrews. Same as Shaheed. And this one I'm very concerned about. If we did like a panic meter, my panic meter would be all the way at the top. This is not good at all. They only threw it 15 times, but he only had 1 target and 0 catches. Like, he is wholly uninvolved in this offense right now. It's Derrick Henry, it's Lamar Jackson on the ground, and it's Zay Flowers through the air. And that is pretty much it. Bateman got a little bit more involved, caught a touchdown today, but Andrews is not the focal point of the offense. He is not the number 1 option. He is not maybe he can be the number 2 option through the air, but that's the number 4 option in the offense for how they want to play. And so I'm very concerned for somebody that had him ranked preseason as a top 3 tight end. I pushed him up over McBride. I just feel terrible about that. Now, I ended up with him in a couple spots where I could have picked McBride and didn't. And so now Mark Andrews is something I'm very concerned about. I don't know if you can even start him next week. There were a lot of good tight end performances this week, including Cole Kmet, who I need to look at the snap share, but he had like 10 targets to Gerald Everett's 1 for the Bears. So if the Bears passing offense is going to get going here a little bit with Caleb Williams, and Kmet is going to be that safety valve for him, especially while Keenan Allen is out, I think, Kmet is maybe somebody that you can look to start over Mark Andrews. But this is very unfortunate, very high draft capital for a tight end who is just not going to really play for you anymore until we see something different. So very disappointed here. All right, with that, leave a comment down below if there's anybody else that you think are winners or losers. Also, we're going to start doing rankings. So if you comment down below, ask for the rankings, we will send you our rankings starting this week in week 4. And we look forward to talking to you guys in the next one.